in the roller coaster that was the 2016 election, we saw a bunch of clips throughout, many which showed some familiar sights, some very peculiar, as peculiar gets. And as we had heard from various topics ranging from, terrorism to identity politics, one group seemed to stand out the most and was very interesting to follow. One group that portrays themselves as individuals and intellectuals, but they are far from it. They range from topics regarding race, identity, and culture, and many of you have probably never heard of them. This group is known throughout the people that are not outside the politosphere as the alt-right, or alternative right, if you will. The alt-right was a term that was first coined by Richard Spencer and Paul Gottfried in a Lincoln Republicans think tank, if you will. And it was a term coining a new type of conservative, if you will. A conservative that stood for traditional conservative values, but stood out for one key thing, and that was white conservative values. Now, as Nicole Hemmer, a university professor, a Virginia professor will say, and author of the forthcoming book, Messengers of the Right, most of its members are young white men who see themselves foremost as champions of their own demographic. However, a part of their alliance to their own tribe, as they call it, the greatest point in the lie is that they are against multiculturalism, immigration, feminism, and all above political correctness, if you will. And this sentiment was popularized pretty much by the climate of the 2016 election with, the flamboyancy of our current president. As one of the alt-right's founding members, Jared Taylor, which is the leader of one of these subgroups called American Renaissance, he argues that multiculturalism is a myth, and that the only way to have a society pretty much be successful, trifle, and how would I put it to you, continuing to progress, as if you will, it has to remain with the populace of its own kind. In other words, it has to have people with one identity, one culture, one set of values. Now, Taylor, like many of the alt-righters, credit many of the accomplishments of modern era to Western innovations. They credit philosophies, they credit ways of life, and they credit all of them to be fruitful gifts of the white man to the world. And that to conserve these values, we must ensure that there is white men in the future. The group also allows other groups that share similar goals to join its ranks, although some of these groups have portrayed in the past to have very disturbing views, like our traditional nationalist movements here, which many of you abbreviates to common American Nazi, and they ensure that they want to have a prevailing view of white majority in this culture. But the greatest thing that they all share and fear is a pseudo-belief of, how do I put it to you? A pseudo-belief of, there it is, for retribution by the opposed classes. In other words, retribution for their sins. They fear that all of us might gather and pay penance for what their ancestors did to our ancestors, which is inherently a myth. Many people don't think of this way when we refer to the white culture, and they also share another belief among many white supremacy groups, which is that they also believe the world is run by a vast Zionist Hebrew conspiracy, and that they are out to put Judea upon all of us. The alt-right continues to make its moves and continues to resonate to this very day, with the division of the populace that is continued by Donald Trump. When every time he says, "Make America Great Again." Now, "Make America Great Again," as the director of the Intelligence Project of Southern Poverty Law Center says, Mrs. Heidi Beichert, says every time he says "Make America Great Again," all these racists think of a time when whites were the majority. When she hears "Make America Great Again," she just can't refer to think of the slogans that white supremacists and what it means to them, which it means them getting rid of millions of people. Now, this slogan has gave fire to many of them, pretty much winning them to come out of the closets, if you will, and voice their opinions and pretty much act them out. And like figures, like I said before, Richard Spencer, Ann Coulter, and Milo have popularized it onto students like ourselves, which I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of the Berkeley debacles and all the Black Bloc marches against the anti-fascists. Now, the greatest lie that this group has sold to the rest of the American populace is that they are standing up for patriotic values, that they are standing for overall the benefit of America, that they believe and they sell to gullible people out there that they are the original America, and that if you want to preserve American Western, all the good stuff like freedom of speech, equality, and the overall decency that we live and enjoy every day, that pretty much they are the ones responsible and are the champions of it. And many young individuals who have perhaps not heard of the wars past or the rise of fascism and communism join their ranks and champion their cause very fiercely. It's this dangerous part of the ideology that makes it a threat, and that makes it no different than any other white supremacist group. This dangerous part that it gathers a populace which feels that they're their last straws and gives them the merit to do anything. And as we progress, we see their actions take further hold in our society and represents of intolerance as they're growing the last kicking screams as they believe it. But at the end of it all, this group will continue to spread its dangerous ideology until it will continue to manifest itself into a point that it will just blow up into a civil war amongst us. And what history teaches us is that when people start believing that they have nothing to lose, they're willing to do anything they can. Now, their points are not profound, their points are not new, they're old, ancient, tribalistic. Just like the ones shared by the Klan or the Nationalist Workers' Party in Germany. No matter how they readdress the message, they will always be viewed as they truly are represent, which is hate and intolerance.
All right, Luis, what did you think?
Your overall delivery, you appear very confident, and your movement and the tone of your voice is somewhat charismatic. But the introduction was kind of like, it was really windy, like you were sort of searching through a maze, and sort of like, okay, so I'm starting, so let's see where we end up. And I couldn't really find an argument. I felt like this is what we're doing persuasive speeches, but this felt more like you were presenting us with information about the alt-right, and there was no like argument you were trying to make. You weren't trying to either persuade us to do something, or you weren't trying to claim some sort of fact or value. You had good information in there, but I really couldn't find how it was relevant, because I didn't feel like there was any structure to the speech. It was kind of like you're sort of blending or stitching together like information that you found. But I feel like your delivery skills are really good, but you should work on your structure and the messages you're trying to convey.
Okay. I'm going to echo a few of those things. I do think that your audience contact is really problematic. You just look down. So I'm going to disagree a little bit about the delivery things. I think your vocal delivery is okay, but your energy level needs to be consistent. There are those places where you are hesitant and uncertain. But you do seem engaged when you're speaking, and I like the way your voice projects effectively, but the pacing is, I think, a little bit problematic. So that's the delivery stuff. The content stuff, I'm going to agree with almost everything Luis said. 90% of your presentation is an informative speech. At about the 7-minute mark, I heard something that started to sound like there's a claim, a point of view, a perspective, that this group is potentially dangerous, that there is a problem here, that we should watch out for them, that you should not fall prey to any of their arguments, that sort of thing. And that comes after 7 minutes of history about what's going on and description of what these groups entail. And I think that that's really late in the process, and I think you need to build the argument a little bit more that they are in fact dangerous, or that they are, when you get to the point of the tribalism, well, what are the dangers of the tribalism? At best, you come down to an analogy to the Klan and Nazis. I think you could probably find contemporary examples of that kind of tribalism and how destructive it is, either internationally in places of the world where they engage in similar kinds of behavior, regardless of what the tribe is that they happen to be in. They see outsiders as being dangerous, and they persecute them and harm them, or they pass legislation to keep them out, or any of those sorts of things. The idea that this is a nascent fascist movement is probably a good argument to make, but the proof on it here needs to be a little bit stronger. They model themselves on a lot of other kinds of things that they, like you said at the beginning, they see themselves as being representing or defending their particular culture. How's what they're doing different from what other groups do in similar kinds of contexts, whether it's Black Lives Matter or La Raza or whatever other groups that you're talking about? What you need to do is you need to distinguish them and say they're doing something that is problematic and harmful and has these negative consequences to it. Not just describing to us what their beliefs are, but you got to tell us why having those beliefs are problematic and why they produce a particular harm. There's no preview. There's not really any discernible pattern of information, except that we get more and more information as you go along. There's a link to other elements of the political system that I think need to be strengthened. Criticism, connections to Trump, I think, are probably a good place to go, but I think you need to have a little bit more link on those sorts of things. If they that they support Trump, I guess that makes. What were their choices? They didn't have a lot of other choices. The question is, did their support make a difference? Or, for example, did his actions and behaviors incentivize those kinds of beliefs and reflect them? I think that that's something that needs to be discussed a little bit more. All right, thank you.